Welcome to Animal Posse, the podcast dedicated to the people and rescues making a difference in the lives of animals. Today, I'm talking with Tammy Kaehler from Love Your Feral Feline. If you ever wanted to make a real difference in the cats in your neighborhood and weren't sure how to start, this episode is for you. We are going to be breaking down the practical ways that anyone can step up and help their community cats. Welcome to the show, Tammy. I am looking
Thank you.
forward to talking about Love Your Feral Felines.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about yourself. How did you come to get involved in cat rescue?
Yeah, I came to cats late, but when I came to cats, I went all in. I grew up with a mother who was allergic to cats, and then I married a man who was allergic to cats. So I had no experience really, but we lived in Long Beach, California for a while, and we had a backyard cat. And then we decided to move to San Diego, and we were so attached by that point to that backyard cat that my husband shrugged and he said, "We got to try." So we grabbed her and took her with us, and lo and behold, my husband has somehow gotten over his allergies. So we had her, we lost her, and we adopted brother and sister kittens, and then took in a barn cat, and now we're a three-cat family, and he's still doing fine. So that was the coming to it late. I got involved so we had brought that backyard cat in, and somehow I found Love Your Feral Felines, and the word feral in the title, resonated with me because we'd taken in this feral cat. They started as an organization placing barn cats, pulling them from shelters where they had really no other options and placing them as working cats. But anyway, I found them, I donated some supplies. And then once we wanted to adopt, we adopted from them, our brother and sister kittens. And a couple of months after that, I was just so in love with our new family and the babies that we had. And I wanted to help and donate and volunteer. This was also in the middle of COVID and the shutdown. We all had more time on our hands. And so I contacted them and talked to them about how I could volunteer and things. That was 5 years ago, and it's sprawled out in many different directions since then. But that's how I got into it in the first place.
You're the development coordinator. What
Yes.
did you do prior to becoming the development coordinator? And what are your duties as a development coordinator?
It's whatever we make up, is the short answer. So I reached out, and again, this was shut down, and I barely knew anything about cats. But where I come from and what I am, I'm a writer. And so I reached out and said, "Hey, I'm sitting at home. There's not a lot going on in the world, but I can write. Can I help with writing for you guys?" But at that point, I was still getting used to having kittens, and I was not ready to think about fostering and all of those kinds of things. But I thought that probably I could bring something that not everyone could bring as far as expertise and background and things. So I started off helping with writing the adoptable cat bios online. And that sort of expanded to writing little bits of copy here and there for a website, or the founder needed a short bio description for herself for some activity. Once things opened up, started helping at special events, adoption weekends, and that sort of thing, or street fairs. We'll go and have a booth and talk to the public about cats and cat rescue and things like that. I started writing blog posts now and then. I started helping write some social media posts. We have one social media guy who basically does everything. And so I've tried to pick up the slack and give him a break of a day or two a week. And then it expanded to, listen, I can write. Maybe I can help you write grant applications. Not that I knew anything about them. I figured I could learn. And they weren't really doing much with that because it was always one of the two. The executive director was the one doing all of that, and she was stretched in 95 million ways. And so that's where the development coordinator came from. The point of that was writing grant applications and doing the follow up and doing the reporting, all those kinds of things that come along with it. Along the way, I've expanded that a little bit into fundraising in general. I'm trying to help get us set up with a donor management system. We're behind the times. We don't really have one of those in place. And trying to think about donor follow up and stewardship, I guess they call it. And along the way, also, I've done a lot of public speaking in my background as a writer and other things. And I started doing some of the media work for the organization because our founder does not like being on camera, let's say, and she freezes. So she needs someone else. And the executive director isn't always available. She is mostly out of state these days, although still involved in our organization, but she can't meet people. So there's no one really to meet people if they need a tour of our adoption center or to do podcasts. Or last year, I think it was, I was at CatCon. I did a podcast with someone there or little media interviews or whatever it might be. So I don't know. I think it helps me to be able to try new things and dabble in a bunch of different places. I've also fostered. I've also done the tiniest bit of TNR. I get to know all the different areas, which is good because then I can talk about them for some of these other duties. But it helps keep things fresh for me too, so it's not the same thing over and over again. So yeah, that was the long answer.
Yeah, I love hearing that too because I think when it comes to volunteering, people think that you either have to go foster, clean kennels, or do adoption events. And so I
Right.
like that you were able to get into something and it's benefiting an organization greatly by what you are doing. Can we talk about something like that too? What are roles in animal rescue that people can get into that might not necessarily involve hands on with the animals? Because some people just don't have the time to do
Right.
hands on with the animals or can't.
Yeah, definitely. We always have need for fosters. We always have need for people. We have cats in two facilities, our own adoption center, and we have some cats at a PetSmart. And we always have need for people to work shifts. And that works great for some people who can't have additional cats at home or can't have any cats at home, but want to spend a little time. And you do a 2 or 3 hour shift once a week or once every other week. And that works great for some people. I live very far away. I'm 45, 50 minutes away from our adoption center. So that's not practical for me and for other people that are farther out. But there's also all kinds of other needs. We need people to transport. There was a call just put out. Can someone take a kitten who needs extra support from a foster in one location 45 minutes away to the other location where she can get the support tonight? Or it might be picking up medicine at the local clinic and taking it to the adoption center so a foster can come get it. And sometimes that's easy for people because it might be their route home anyway, and they could contribute that kind of support. So cats need to go back and forth all the time. Medicine, supplies, we need runs to storage to stock more, bring more litter from the storage facility to the adoption center, that kind of thing. We have people who are good at fixing things. You know, if something, the wall hammock pulls out of the wall and you need someone who can come in and put a new wall anchor and get that stable again, or sew up the seam on the thing that tore so it can be used again. And we have people that will come in and fix the litter box cabinets or whatever when they break or mess with the lock on the door. We have people that are like me that are good at just like special events. There are a lot of people who mostly volunteer for the adoption events. I'm part of the team that goes to CatCon, and we've got a local strawberry festival and a local avocado festival and those kinds of things out in our communities. We have people who work just on the adoption committee, taking the applications, doing the interviews, and working through approvals or not. We have people that do TNR. We don't have an official program because we don't have a lot of people who can go out and respond to the public yet. We're trying to build up that program. But there are a couple people who will go out in our, especially the community around where our adoption center is, and do a bunch of that. They've developed a couple colonies and they're continuing to care for them. So we have people going out and feeding. So I think we have people with bookkeeping background, whatever it might be. We have a couple people who are vet techs who volunteer and come in once a week or once every couple weeks to help give vaccines and just do brief checkups of the cats that are in there. So there's a lot of different expertise that we can use. And I think there's an opportunity. I always try and tell people if they're interested at all, it doesn't have to be the typical thing you're thinking of, the fostering or the working the shift with the hands-on. Think about what you are good at and might be able to contribute, and chances are the organization can use that somehow, sometime.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. If you're interested, you want to help animals, just to reach out to an
Yeah.
organization and say, hey, I don't know if you can use this, but this is what I can offer you. And I think if
I mean,
people did that, they would be very surprised.
and the other examples of photography. We always need good pictures of the cat. Graphic design, we always need that kind of thing. Anyone who's willing to organize and house materials. I just ran this auction and I have just gobs and gobs of items that needed to be packaged and have cute little names for the packages put together and then hold on to them and then label them, and just having people help organize and prettify little auction baskets or whatever it might be. Like that's a skill too that I don't necessarily have. So there, whatever it might be, it might seem, oh, but this might never be relevant. Ask. If you love cats and want to contribute somehow, ask.
Yeah, I know wrapping up things for silent auctions and putting together gift baskets, that's something I struggle with, I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I'm not fulfilling. I've figured out how to photograph the packages. They're going to people in plain paper bags with a label and their name on it. Like it's not fancy how they're getting delivered, but they're getting the goods. And that's what's important. But this was an online auction too. This wasn't an in person, everything laid out on a table. It's pretty, because I can't do that. The baskets and the cellophane and the ribbons. No, that's not me. There are lots of people can do that. Not me.
Yeah, yeah. Same with me. Now, another
Yeah.
thing that I'd like to talk about, if we can get into
Sure.
this a little bit more, we'll talk about your silent auction,
Sure.
just like putting something together like that. But also, since you did do the adoption bios, if you have any advice on what works, what doesn't work for the adoption bios.
Yes. It's hard because sometimes I took a different approach to them that we're not really doing anymore because I'm not doing them. After a couple of years, I ran out of steam. But I took a different approach, a silly fictional approach. Now, I'm a writer, I've written some fiction, published some novels. So I was trying to take this sort of creative approach. And there was a cat that would have a lot of a lot of swagger, and this would be the, or a cat that was super talkative, and I would write a bio about that being your friendly neighborhood newscaster who loved to tell you all about what was happening in the world of the adoption center and was going to tell you about their day and give you a commentary. And I would personify or come up with some human kind of role for the cats to try and add something to the description of their characters. So that was one way. I think it's hard to manufacture, especially when you have a foster who gives you, they're very friendly. They like to flop on your feet and rub their cheeks on your hands and loves their food and want toys. Like it's hard to do something with that. And so that's why I tried to pull in a character to the different cats. I've actually been thinking recently that I should try, and this may be dirty words for some people, but that I should try dropping some of the short descriptions into AI and see what it could generate. Just because you just need a little fluffing around the words and some heartfelt kinds of things. And so I don't know. I feel like I'm not answering this question very well, but it is something I struggled with. And that's why I had tried to pull in some character.
I think you explained
Go
it
ahead.
well because
Okay.
that's what I was asking, really. Because I know, like, for me, when I had foster cats, and if I was trying to write a bio for them, you get to a point where they almost all sound the same.
Yes,
And you don't
exactly.
want them to all sound the same, because when people are reading the bios, and if you're just trying to get their attention with the
Right.
bios, some people, of course, if the cat's reaching out the cage, they're going to gravitate towards that cat anyway. But you do
Yeah.
have people that like to read the bios, and sometimes they might go to an adoption center when all the cats are sleeping. And so,
Right.
in cases like that, you do want to have a good adoption bio. You want to have something that's going to attract their attention. And I do find that a lot of places, they all sound just very generic and the same. And
Yeah.
I know a couple of weeks ago, I spoke with Christy Keith, and she was saying that having the more silly approach and humorous approach actually reaches different people. And I've
Hmm.
noticed that too with mine because my rescue's Unwanted Feline Organization. So our acronym is UO. So we lean towards everything spacey.
Right.
It
Great. I
works, you
love
know?
that.
I do think it reaches people differently from just that generic bio that you always see.
Yeah. Yeah. I know it's making me feel like I want to go back and start writing these again because it's so much more fun to have a hook than just the sort of standard. Yeah, this is a people focused cat, or this is a cat's cat, or
Yeah, and it
yeah,
is definitely hard. It really is hard. I do think it definitely
yeah,
takes some creativity to come up with something that doesn't sound like just the standard adoption bio.
yeah. I was thinking about this earlier today and thinking I really should go back and look. I got to a point where I wasn't writing them for kittens because kittens don't last long. But for the adults who take longer, or it's the sort of late teens that take longer to get adopted, I really should go back in and start trying to do a little more with what are probably some pretty short bios. So circle back to where I started would
Uh-huh.
probably be a good thing for
Right.
me to do. So. There's so many things to do. That's the thing. Sure it's the same for you. There are so many things you could do. You have to decide which ones you're going to do because you can't do them all.
With the work that you do with the media,
Yeah.
do you actually approach the media? Do you put out press releases or do you wait for the media to approach the organization before you get involved?
At this point, it's mostly been waiting for the media to approach us. I'm not active. I'm not doing much active reaching out. Our founder does some of that on occasion. It's mostly that she'll reach out to me and say, hey, got a request or sent out a pitch and they want to come see the adoption center. Hey, there's a local mayoral candidate who's visiting businesses in the city that we're in, and they'll come do a little video if we show them around. Or talking to you on a podcast, or I met a podcaster, a couple podcasters at CatCon last year. And just even if they aren't in the area, I did an interview with someone based in Los Angeles and we're down in San Diego, and that's not really overlapping communities, but I figure the more anyone is out there and willing to talk about what's going on in cat rescue and the cat overpopulation problem, the better. So I guess I do a little bit of putting myself out there and reaching out when I hear about things, but I'm not actively pitching with press releases and stuff. I would like to. One of the things that I have been stymied by is a good media list because that's a thing you got to have, and it's hard to generate one if you haven't really ever done it before.
Yeah, that's not something I'm familiar with yet.
Yeah. Yeah, me either. I've looked around like, how do you even reach these people? And I did a little investigation and I just don't really even know. So I moved on to something I could interact.
The silent auction that you're getting together that's online, is that benefiting a certain project for your organization or is it just an overall auction?
Overall auction, general funds. It just actually just completed. I ran it for a week. It went Sunday the 12th to Sunday the 19th. And we had about 110, 109 items. Some of them were things like tickets to the San Diego Zoo or Safari Park. Some of them were collections of cat lady box items, t-shirts and hats and tumblers and cookie cutters and things like that. Some of them were people offering their own expertise. Someone's going to hand crochet a beanie and someone else is going to give someone the cowgirl experience with her horse locally. And some of them were cat goods, toys, litter boxes, wall hammocks, those kinds of things. So it was a big variety of kinds of materials. It was whatever we could generate. And just to gather general funds, pitched it as this is in honor of our 15th anniversary, because Love Your Feral Felines, or LYFF, turns 15 this month. Before I volunteered for LYFF, I had run a silent auction for another purpose. And so I had a little bit of experience and I'd had some success with that. And so I brought that to the table and was like, how about I try an online auction with stuff? And we're also able to get things donated. PetSmart will give us toys. In November, they'll give us some of their leftover Halloween toys. And San Diego Humane Society often gets donations from Chewy of things that didn't sell or were returned or whatever, and they'll open their warehouse to local rescues sometimes, and we can get some goods like that. So I this was actually the fourth of these auctions that I've done over the years, and now it has some momentum because people will donate random things during the year, and then whoever gets that in will hit me up and say, "Hey, you want to save this for the auction?" Toss it in our storage facility and come back to it when it's time. So it's been a decent little moneymaker. So where this time it brought in nearly $6,000.
Wow,
So
that's amazing. That's great.
yeah, 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 I'm pretty pleased with that.
But do you find it's growing every year since you've been doing it for a while now?
That's really hard to say. I feel like we don't get the reach that would help us. But we have a lot of physical goods, so it's also hard to say that people in other states should bid on things. So I would like more participation from bidders. Certainly the quality of items and the variety is growing. This year I got connected to a couple organizations where if you are a registered nonprofit and qualify with them, just basically proving you're a registered nonprofit, you can pay a fee that is not that much and you can cancel it at any time. Like you can pay for it for a month and then not. And then you have access to all kinds of organizations and companies that will donate to nonprofits for fundraising things. So that's how I got zoo tickets and two tickets for a bay cruise in San Diego and tickets to the Wax Museum in Hollywood and a local fitness guru 1 hour session, holistic fitness thing, and a whole bunch of other kinds of activities. There was an in-home wine sampling, wine tasting party for up to 12 people. So a bunch of kind of random things, testing the waters basically to see what would appeal. I've also been trying to do these at different times of the year to see what produces the best. Is this April too late because people are starting to think about summer and planning and using their money there? Or is December good because it's before Christmas and maybe they're thinking about buying themselves or their friends Christmas present? I don't know. But then also you have to take into account what's happening in the economy and the world at these different times and different years. So it's hard. I don't know. There are a lot of different variables. It's hard to isolate them and come to definitive conclusions. But I feel like we at least are getting better about what kinds of items will sell and are interesting and how to get the word out, that kind of thing.
Right. Now, do you do a lot of advertising on social media for this, or do you host it on social media, or is it on just like your regular website?
No, all over social media. Lots. We did a couple posts ahead of the auction, and then we had 4 or 5 during the week of the auction, and we're going to do a thank you post. Plus, I was posting stories, and this is really just Instagram and Facebook. I was posting like 6 stories a day featuring different individual items, trying to drive some traffic there. Yeah, and we sent a newsletter to our mailing list. I feel like there's more we could have done. And probably that's where I would need this in a press release. So there's more we could do, I think, but baby steps. I think we get a little better each time we do one of these.
Yeah, it seems like you did have a great fundraiser. That's great that you were able to
Yeah,
raise that much.
yeah. One of the things we do that I will throw out there, and I want to say, if anyone out there in rescue wants to ask any questions about running one, I'm happy to talk about it. One of the things we did was put in items in the auction for sponsor a litter of kittens and sponsor an adult cat. And those were pretty popular. They're a higher price point starting. So it's not the $20 set of t-shirts or something like that. But a lot of people really like to be able to sponsor a litter of kittens. We tell them they can name them and they'll get frequent updates, photos and things. So that's a nice thing to do. Again, we're doing that work anyway. It takes a little bit of extra effort to do the updating of send pictures and send milestone information to the sponsors, but it's a nice way to bring the community in.
Now, when you do something like that and you say you send them the milestone updates, do you try to follow up even after the kittens get adopted? If people send you updates, do you send
We
them updated, I guess, the post-adoption updates?
so we really only get post adoption updates once at about 6 months if the adopters respond. So we don't always necessarily get them. If we remember, we will do that, but mostly it ends with an adoption photo because there's no guarantee that we're going to hear after the adoption. So it's mostly while they're in care and then an adoption photo with their new family.
Yeah, and I would love to include your contact information in the show notes. That way, in case anybody does have any questions, they could reach out to you.
Absolutely.
Now,
Absolutely.
before we end the call, I would like you to just tell us
Yeah.
a little bit more about life and the programs that you offer and what y'all do.
Sure. Yeah. So Love Your Feral Felines was started in 2011 by Christine Hubbard. She decided one year for her birthday she wanted to do something that wasn't about her necessarily, and she started volunteering at a local shelter. And that's when she became very upset by the lack of outlet for feral cats that were turned in. And that drove her to start Love Your Feral Felines as a barn cat placement program. A couple of years later, she remained connected to someone who had worked at the shelter who then left and brought that person in to start our foster and adoption program. So those two are the mainstays of what we do. The foster and adoption program is really the biggest now. We pull at risk felines from shelter euthanasia lists. We don't take from the public. We work directly with the shelters to take in the cats who are at risk due to age, old or young, mostly young. We're talking neonates or unadoptable because they're too young to be adopted, whether they're weaned or not. But sometimes older cats may be at risk because of health problems, sick, a broken leg, there's an eye infection, needs an enucleation, whatever. Temperament, sometimes it's the spicy ones. But we've also had barn cats, quote unquote, come into the program as a barn cat and discovered that really they were just shut down and terrified in the shelter situation. And so then they come into the adoption program as socialized cats. So those two are the mainstays. Over the 15 years, we've impacted more than 10,000 lives, and that's through barn cat placement, foster and adoption, through some TNR, through some low cost spay and neuter work that we've done. We had a program, we're working to reestablish that. We lost our primary partner for that to be able to offer low cost spay and neuter to the community. But that's something that we really want to be able to do and want to work ourselves back toward doing as we're developing new relationships with a number of different veterinary partners. We also go out and do education as much as possible, whether that's live in the community or we have some educational material for school children on our website. I think I mentioned we do some TNR, also working towards trying to bring that back. We have some programs for Girl Scouts to come get a badge and tour our adoption center and learn about cats. And a lot of these are volunteer driven kinds of endeavors, right? The Girl Scouts thing is because a specific volunteer had a desire to make that happen. So kind of fingers in a lot of pies, but it's all because we also see like the full circle of the problem, right? We can't foster our way out of the cat overpopulation crisis. And so we have to try and do what we can to address the root cause of that problem. And that's helping people get cats spayed and neutered and TNRing community cats so they're not creating more bigger colonies and that kind of thing. So we are all volunteer and we're just a lot of people running around doing all kinds of different things because we love cats and want to try and take care of as many as possible. And 15 years, we're still doing it.
Yeah, we definitely need more cat advocates in the world. I really enjoyed talking to you
Right?
about this. It's a great job that y'all are doing.
Thank you. And you too. And I appreciate you spreading the word. We need more of that too.
Yeah, and what is your website?
It is loveyourferalfelines.com.
And I'm going to put that in the show notes and with some of your contact information as well. So that way people can reach out if they have any
Perfect.
questions.
Perfect. Thank you, Dixie. It was fun to talk.
That's it for today's episode of Animal Posse. If you love what we're doing, please consider becoming a member. Your support directly helps us continue highlighting the people and stories that save lives across the country. Just a quick reminder, the views and opinions expressed by our guests are theirs alone and are provided for entertainment purposes. They don't necessarily reflect the official position of the show, and this information should never replace the advice of your own veterinarian. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Paws in the night, claws in the fight, whiskers twitch and tails take flight. They're calling in stories to spin from the wild to the heart within. Broken wings and hopeful springs, we're the voices for these things. Animal posse, hear the call. We stand together, big and small. Rescue tales, we've got it all. Animal posse, saving them all. The vet's got tips, the rescuer's grit, the foster homes where love won't quit. From a pup in the rain to a bird in pain, every soul's worth the strain. Animal posse, hear the call. We stand together, big and small. Rescue tales, we've got it all. Animal posse, saving them all. Every caller tells a tale, every howl a whispered wail. We rise up, we never fail. This is the bond, the holy grail. Animal posse, hear the call. We stand together, big and small. Rescue tales, we've got it all. Animal posse, saving them all. Every caller tells a tale, every howl a whispered wail. We rise up, we never fail. This is the bond, the holy grail.